Okay, so my good friends, I know I've been a little confrontational, and that's what happens after 50 years. And, of my light research and, atomic research. That was very, very upsetting that not a single word was listened to. And I didn't have the evidence. Now I have the evidence. I have actual evidence. Now, the other thing is the mud fossils, and that's been a minimum of 10 years of complete denial, even after having all of this evidence, CAT scans, DNA, specimens, anatomy, chemistry. I mean, it's undeniable. So I'm done being assaulted by out of control geologists, physicists, and they all do the same thing. They start screaming and then they disengage. And that's happened to me right across the board. Because once you present evidence that they cannot contest, they can't, they no longer can stay in that realm. And even the people that are outside of the mainstream, which is this thing I had the other night with this geologist. That's why I did this here, this response to an out of control geologist. He just started screaming at me from the first second he started. It was insane, really ridiculous. There was no debate, no discussion, nothing. So I don't want to be nasty, and I'd love to even work with this guy, but as a respectful back and forth discussion, and I present my evidence, he presents his evidence, and then we discuss it, and then the feather of truth comes in. The holder of the feather is the discusser, and they have to do it in a credible, honest, truthful way to whatever they see as the truth, but they have to respond to whatever they're presented with and not just start screaming. That just doesn't work. And it doesn't work in any realm. And that's the only way they can maintain control is to say, look, we are, and that's exactly how he started. I got more education. You'd never be able to stand up to me. You just need to get, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh boy, here we go. And sure enough, and then they bumped me off the show, actually, because I started presenting my evidence. They had no way to stand up against it. So let's make it a respectful back and forth. That's all we're asking. And Ron and I are going to do that. And we are going to debate these kind of people because they just hung up on me. And they're going to be debated in absentia. And we're going to start using names. And I will say, here's what so-and-so said, and here's, and because they're putting all these videos out. And I say, fine, let's talk about it. Nope. Won't talk. So we're going to have to do what we have to do. Hopefully we'll have a panel of experts that will be able to stand behind us or against us. I don't care. Because I'll present my stuff against them. They present their stuff against me. That is how it works. It doesn't work from one side screaming. It does not work, my friends. And again, I want to be respectful, and I know my information is what they say, jarring. All right, it is jarring. I don't disagree with that. It upsets your worldview of virtually everything. And I don't care what you've been taught, because it wasn't right. I'm just telling you right now. And I have to do this confrontationally, or I will just be dismissed. Oh, that guy's an idiot. Well, I am dismissed anyway. But the point will come when they can't, right now, the point has already come. The tipping point is here. It's been so many years now. The scale is overloaded, and it's time to address the facts. The material evidence is what I present, not just guesses. That's all I'm asking for. Okay, I wasn't going to use any names in this, but I figure what the hell. There comes a moment in time when you have to just say, here's what this guy said, here's what this guy said, and they were wrong. And this goes back 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Scott Walter, and this is why I was on this show with the geologist. I was trying to confront Scott Walter about his mistake about this head. He said, oh, this head just carved. And this other guy, this other child, started screaming, it's just carved, it's just carved, you're just crazy, how can you believe anybody? And then he just left the show because he had no way to confront what I was saying. These are iron oxides. Blood is iron. And there's two states, really there's more than two states of iron oxide in your body, but it transfers from the red iron oxide, which is Fe2O3, to the black iron oxide, blue in your body, Fe2O2, which is one less oxygen because you use the oxygens. That's what the iron is running through your body. Now, this material here is what they call feldspar, sandstone, whatever you want to call it. And it is always on the outside of like membranes and like even this goose. This is a goose that fossilized in the same manner as this. I imagine this was during the same time. Jim Burchell and Arlie Caudle down in Kentucky found this head in a riverbank and presented it to Scott Walter on TV, and within 20 seconds, he never saw it before, and in 20 seconds, absolutely carved, that's it, the case is closed on your head. And Jim, being a gentleman from Kentucky, did not protest. I would have screamed. And then I did. And I talked to Scott about it, and it ended up back and forth until he finally just blocked me and they get lost. I'm the expert and you're nothing. And I said, wait a minute, let's discuss what we got. We got bone black coming out of here. They don't understand bones and body parts and so forth. That is a bone, but it's not a white bone like you see a bone laying on the side of that's been boiled and so forth and all of the stuff away from it. No, this is a complete body part, just as this is the head of a goose. And there is where the neck is in the back. And it's turned to basalt because it's a bloody mixture in here. And there's different textures of rock. And they understand this, they just don't understand why they exist in this manner. They're always coated with feldspar. Almost 100%. Feldspar, feldspar, feldspar. And I'm going to show you something right here that's going to knock your socks right off, so you better take them off now. Okay, remember I said we need a biologist, an anatomist, chemist. All of this stuff, feldspar, is aluminum silicates. All right, there's aluminum in them. That is not in your body tissue. Aluminum is not, aluminum goes this way and that way. It's a transfer molecule, transfer atom in your body that moves products back and forth. It's one of the only things that does that. And there's a ton of aluminum in the crust of the earth, but not normally in living biological tissue. But after you die and your body wants to stabilize, it finds aluminum to lock into, and then they form aluminosilicates. It's called nucleophilic substitution, which means a new invader comes in and pushes a molecule out and says, I'm here to stay, and I will stabilize with this product, and I will make this guy's head stay exactly as it is, and you guys will call this feldspar. Inside, you will call it basalt, or whatever other, metamorphic rock. You call it all kinds, igneous, they got all kinds of names. And it depends on where it was, what pH it was in, what types of molecules it was petrified in. Was it a lot of blood? Because this is all blood, transition metals are all blood. Was there a lot of acids, a lot of salts? This pH makes a huge difference. How much water, how long? What was the temperature? What was the pressure? How deep was it? Was it on the surface? Was it exposed to the sun? I understand all of these things now because I've tested all of them. I know I've found every single one of these cases, and I can find this is an opal heart. You say, oh, that's not opal. Yes, it is. It's a water opal. There was no transition metals in this, but this is an opal heart. If there was transition metals in here, you'd see all kinds of colors. I've shown this 100 times. I understand this stuff, and I will talk to anybody about it. And this is biology, and that right there is the cartilage part of your nose. Just grab your nose, hold your nose, pinch away the flesh, and you'll find that's right underneath. That's where your muscles attach to. Somebody stepped on this guy's nose. Somebody stepped on his nose. The muscles lock right into these ridges here, and right about here is where your bone starts and goes up into your head. I'll show you the anatomical in a second. I've studied this stuff extremely well. This is, again, the Fe2O3, Fe2O2, and this is bone black, smashed bone. When you break a bone, you end up with bone black in the center. You see the bone black? That's a bone. That, my friend, is a bone. And that is a broken bone, and that is bone black, because when bones break, the marrow inside comes out black. And you also have vein and artery blood, so you're going to have red and you're going to have black in the mud fossils. In regular fossils, I mean in the body of living creatures, you see it always described as red and blue. artery, vein. Vein is returned blood back up to your heart to get clean through your liver and all that business and to get reoxygenated. And that's when it turns red. Okay, are you ready for this, my friends? This right here, I am going to show you. Now, would you agree that it looks basically the same as this material here? Basically the same. I'm going to show you this in a microscope in a minute, and then I'm going to show you something else that's going to freak you out. Now, you see in his head you got blood coming out of here, and what you'd expect it to be in the neck too. Well, guess what? It's coming out of his neck too. I fully understand this now, and I wish Scott Walter would come on and just make a statement to say, this is something new we never expected. I'm not trying to belittle anybody, but I came after him and I said, Scott, you got to stand up and look at this. Just take one more look at it. He refused, absolutely refused. And I told him, I said, I think this thing had a hat on. He said, oh, come on, you got to be crazy. I said, no. I said, you got to look at it, though. You got to look at it. You can't just say I'm crazy. You see these things overweaved, under, over, the same thing here, under, over. I don't know what this was like. It looks like weave to me. And Jim, I haven't actually touched this head. I don't need to. I understand it. I can understand it just from the look and the chemistry that I can see. Now, Jim said he could take a playing card and slide it right up under the guy's cap. It's a cap that's on his head. And this is a head, and it's a real head. Okay, you see this piece right here? I broke this off of a gigantic fingertip. And this is the fingerprints. All right, they call it grip skin. Well, I do. I don't know what they call it, to be perfectly honest with you. But this is the grip skin of your fingerprints. And that is the fingerprint right there. This one ridge, they call these the ridges. That one ridge is the same width as my whole thumb. Now, you know how many ridges you have on your fingers. Now, and this is a fingertip. Now, and these little dots are sweat pores. You see up here the sweat pores on the fingertip ridges. And the fingerprint, well, here's the fingerprint, the fingertip itself. And here's how big it is. Now, I think it was about 30 inches, maybe even a little more from here to there. And this is the fingernail. I mean, it's absolutely flawless. I broke this off of right there. You see this right here? That curve right there? That's where this broke off, and it wrapped around the side. And the fingerprints start, just as they do on yours, right at the edge of your fingernails. They're not just way down at the tips. And that's exactly where it is. There was a fingernail around right there. And then the fingerprints shoot off from there. Those are the fingerprints. Now, I'm saying this is the same material, basically, as all the other feldspar. It's almost all the same. Well, it is all the same. It's collagens, but they're like grip skin has a little bit different texture. There's a lot more silicates. I believe there's iridium in the grip skin. I'm almost sure of that. I haven't done any chemical analysis. But then you have pleura. You have a lot of the same collagens and kerogens and all that stuff, which is aluminum silicates again. They all bind to aluminum, and they all have 8 oxygens and aluminum in them. Every single feldspar. And feldspar is nothing more than the membranes. Feldspar is membranes, skin, feathers. It's the coating of life. Membranes around bones, periosteum. It's the surrounding membrane of everything is made of collagen and aluminum silicates. And then inside you get into your basalts and stuff. You see the black? We're going to look at this in a microscope in a second. I'm going to knock your socks off once again because I'll be able to find blood in here and show you that there was blood in this fingertip. And when we see it in a microscope, you'll probably be able to understand. The geologist I was trying to talk to on this show the other day, he's just insane. I would show these things, screaming, and then finally he just left the show because it was silly. I mean, he was so far he was crushed. I'm sorry, but that's how they react. It's not a reaction of, well, let's see more, let's see this, let's see that. Rex, who was hosting the show, was a little more respectful, but I could tell by the time it was over, he was kind of being a little bit disrespectful, but it was nice of him to host me, to talk to it. But I would sure like to talk to Scott Walters again. I mean, that's not right to do that 6, 7 years ago and destroy our research on TV within 20 seconds. I mean, that's not a scientist. And this was what it was supposed to be about, is to make an in-depth look at what I had here, and instead it just turned into a shouting match, and it didn't last very long at all because the guy was a screamer. And that's the only way they can react now. There is no possible, because here, let me show you the DNA test. Now don't forget, what I'm going to show you in the microscope, I will find some little blood vessels in the back here. They'll be in here. I can find it. They'll be in here somewhere. Little tiny ones, because you almost have almost no blood in the skin of the fingertips. But underneath in the flesh, it's everywhere. Blood, your fingertips are flush with blood. Now, this was the test, so I tried to explain to them, and right away they started screaming, that doesn't mean that, that's silly, that you can't do this, there's DNA everywhere. I took it right out of the blood, and I'll show you where I took it. So, and I did show them how I took it right from blood, but I went down through the thing, and he wanted to see little bits and pieces, and I tried, anything you want to see. And it was all positive for the DNA and negative for the negative controls, exactly what you want to see. And 2 of them were very dense, and 1 of them was not quite as dense, but they were all had the same DNA. 2 of them had excellent quality DNA sequences, and this was one of them, excellent quality. The other one was this lung, had the excellent quality. The other one, the big hand, I had a 3-foot wide hand, and that was more it turned basically to mud, but you can see it, there's no question. And there was quality in there, but these had excellent quality DNA. And these, what they are, Homo sapien, mitochondrial B gene, and D loop region. That's what they tested for. And of course the guy was screaming and screaming, and I, the test was verified, and they stick behind it. Helix Biolab says 100% they will stick behind their analysis of what I sent them. They did not extract the DNA from the samples. I did it. But where I extracted it from was literally blood, and sealed them up. I did it very, very carefully, and he told me, he says it was really very dense. He said, I was very surprised. This is very dense for ancient DNA, because I took it right from the arteries. All right, this is the lung. This was the surface of the lung. I took a chunk of blood out from underneath, scraped it off good, clean. Everything was clean, and gloves and masks, the whole 9 yards. Scraped it off, and then took chunks of blood like this from inside here. Now watch. I'm going to drill down into there. Watch. Oops, go the other way. Way down in here is where I went to get red blood, which was dripping all over him. The whole thing was slathered with this blood. And that's what they tested. And that was the drill I drilled down in here. Now, and that is the lung. Now I'm going to show you the other one. And here it is, right there is the lung. All right. Now you have to have the lights off to see these things. Now I'm going to put in the fingertip, and I'm going to see if I can find a spot we can see blood. Alright, what you're looking at here is that giant fingertip I showed you, that huge one, 30 inches long. That, I think, about 150-foot tall guy. I mean, it's insane, but it just appears to be true. Now, I'm going to show you up in the, this is the microscopic shot of it right now. And here it is, and it was DNA tested, and excellent quality DNA, as they said. Right there is an artery and a vein. Alright. Now, they are tiny going into the really rough stuff of your fingertip, but that is artery, which purges. The black blood hardens up like a rock. Well, it hardens up as a rock. The veins empty out normally if they can. And in this case, the veins were able to just sort of work themselves out into the moisture that was in the area. But the O2 oxygen level ones, they harden up apparently pretty fast. And they get hard. That's your black iron. This is what they call hematite is the red iron. And normally this would be red if there was still blood left in there. Magnetite, yeah, hematite and magnetite. Magnetite is the black blood, but they're both ferrous oxides. And you know, I was going to do a thing about magnetism because these are the magnetic particles. And for most people don't know, there's 5 types of magnetism, you know. There's so much that's not understood, it's incredible. And I'm going to be doing a show with Ra. This guy's name is Ralph Castellato. And we're going to be doing a show together, and we're just going to do everything, the whole 9 yards. Because everything is wrong. I mean, literally everything. I'm not kidding you. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. And then we're going to go through everything, because geology's wrong, obviously, if that's not right. And I'm telling you, the things that are coming through space are the same kind of things as this, identical, same stuff. I've been doing tons of research on it. I'm not wrong about that. And they also claim the same thing. It's all organic out there. They can't account for it. They're just seeing it, and they're trying to collect samples and, you know, do all this. But I know what it is already. You could see the biology of it. I've done Comet 67b 6 years ago. And I'll be showing that too. We'll be showing all this stuff. That is from that giant fingertip. That is blood, and that is the evacuation of blood. Okay, my friends, as I have said a million times, there's almost always an artery which is empty or has the red blood still in it, near a vein, which that little tiny spot was where the vein was, and then the black blood hardens up like a rock. In this case, it is a rock. Now, that's an artery. They purge, the blood drains out because there's no clamps. These have clamps, and these are the O2 oxygen state. This is the O3 oxygen state of iron. And they are both, this is hematite, magnetite is the black blood, and hematite is the red blood, or you know, ferrous oxides. And then there's all kinds of chemistry going on here. But there's anatomy, there's chemistry, there's biology, there's, you know, the mud fossilization process. There's all kinds of things that are not understood by one guy or the other. Guy says, I'm a geologist, and that right there, my friend, is basalt. And we know this forms because of this and this and this. And they come up with all kinds of crazy, crazy things. You should hear what he talked about the vagina. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even believe myself. But they are told to say these things, and if they don't, they're going to lose everything that they have fought for as professors, and they just can't allow that to happen. However, a smarter way to approach this would be to say, well, let's discuss this. Wow, and somebody's going to be the first guy to agree to it and say, let's take a look at it, and then they're going to be the hero. Why shouldn't somebody come along and do that? Here, I'm going to change the light a little bit. See if it makes any difference to what we see. You see, there's usually, whenever you also have your veins and arteries running together, you usually have some kind of a cord running along with them. And I believe that's what that is. And all of this is the gooey little substance. This is the grip skin. All right, now let me just turn on the light. I want to show you something. Here's the other piece. That grip skin was in 2 pieces. All right, I'm going to turn this on right now. And it will probably, no, it's not too bad. Usually you lose this. Now, this is that grip skin where the fingerprint was that I showed you before. I soaked this in water because you can see it a lot. When they hydrate like this is rehydrated. That's why you see it like that. Now, there'll be some other ones I could find in here that are the same sort of stuff, because this is highly magnified. But you could see, this breaks off, just like the grip skin that I showed you before. That was just glued right to that fingertip. I had to smash it with like a little sledgehammer to break it off of there. And the fingernail went right there. And I just banged it, and it popped right off like a piece of skin pops off of your finger. As I showed you that picture of the grip skin. And there's the artery, and there's the vein. And this is DNA tested, it's certified. And like I say, I went up the other way into the flesh of the finger, you know, which would be more dense, basically. All right, just so, because the geologist would give me a hard time about this, let's call it chain of custody. There's the blood vessels, Mudfossil University. There's the DNA test. There is the specimen in the, you know, camera video up there. Now, this is the other piece of the fingertip. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put this back the way it came off when I smashed it. And again, that was the way the fingernail ran. I mean, this is a huge thing. And that's where the fingerprint is. And you can see it. You see the fingerprint right here? And I showed it here. Hold on. One more time. But you can see that's the fingerprint. And this was where the fingernail was. Right there. The fingerprint runs right off the edge just like it does on yours. It's right almost touching your fingernail. Okay, one more time. Chain of custody. Here it was. That was it right there. Yeah, that little hook was right like this. And it broke off right down here, you see it? And that was where the fingerprints were on the other side. Now, that's pretty big. And here it is with the grip skin, which is what I was just showing you, holding in my hand right here. And that's what it does. It peels off just exactly like that. Exactly like that. And my other giant hand, hold on, let me show you that one. My other giant hand has the same grip skin coming off. And this was also DNA tested. This was the one that was not quite so dense. And you see the grip skin here, that silvery looking stuff peeling right off? That's because that's dense in silicon and I think some other metals, and I believe iridium is one of them. I'd love to have it tested, but I don't have facilities to do that, and I don't have the money to do that, and nobody seems to care. And anyway, this is the left hand. You have one of these things coming down out of your hand too. It's a little tendon runs down. Your thumb goes off this way, which I have here. I have some knuckles. I have all kinds of stuff from this thing. And this is the pad that runs right around your hand. It's different than the other tissue in your hand. It's you feel it. You know what your hand is if you got one, and you just bump around on it, you feel. Same with your nose, the thing I showed you about your nose, and how the muscles in, well, hold on, let me show you this, hold on. I showed you the thing from Scott Walter where he discounted that head. And hold on, let me just show that. I got that right here as a matter of fact. Jim's head. Now, don't forget, what we're talking about is muscles attaching right to here and muscles attaching right to here. Somebody squished this guy's nose. Now, right up about here is where the bone starts going up. But down here, you have all these muscles attached. Now, let's see if we can see that in the anatomy. And don't forget, we talked about the O2 and the O3 style blood. We talked about the bone black. I think I told you about the cap. I told you about the neck having the same blood all over that too. And I mean, I see so many anatomical features in here that I fully understand. And again, if you don't have somebody that understands anatomy and biology and chemistry and nucleophilic substitution and all of and even the history and even the stories and even the Velikovsky accounts, because you have to understand that most of this stuff, well, I think almost all of it, was because the Earth was literally boiled by Venus. For 7 days, Velikovsky said, the ancient accounts were written. Everywhere in the world, there was a brilliant, bright light, brighter than the sun, approaching Earth, which was Venus. And it got hotter and hotter and hotter, and the people had nowhere to go. They jumped in the oceans and the waters to try to save themselves, and they were boiled. It's exactly what it says. the earth wrenched. Every volcano on earth went off. And this was only 3,500 years ago, which would boil these creatures basically and preserve them in body parts. And that's what I have found, body parts, bones that are fully articulated. All of the stuff is here. It's not just bone. And that's the only thing they can think about is bone. Well, we got everything stuck together. And they think that's a concretion. It's not. It is the full body parts. I got the full Monty, baby. And what is the full Monty? The whole thing, baby. Everything that is wanted or needed is found at Mudfossil University. Come on down. We'll be waiting. Okay, this is strange. This just came in from John Hernandez. I have an extremely large network of informants. Operatives, let's call them. And I get things all day long. Now, this just came in about Brian Forrester. Now, I know Brian. I've communicated back and forth with him a few times. And as a matter of fact, Ra, the guy that I'm talking about that I'm going to be doing the show with, he does shows now. He does them all the time. And he had Brian Forrester on. And he's always on with Rex, too, which is the other guy that, the geologist friend of his. That's the one. Anyway, this came in today about Brian Forrester. And when Ra interviewed Brian said, oh, I don't believe in any of that mud fossil stuff. Well, that's okay. And you know, not to believe in something is okay, but when you're shown the evidence not to look at it, that's not really okay. And he's there on site. He could do the job. And I've been trying to get through to him to do that. And I'm a Facebook friend and I follow his stuff, and it gives me a lot of understanding of what I'm seeing. But I have to believe that he's understanding what he's seeing. I can't believe he's not. And if he doesn't, I would certainly love to discuss it with him so that we could decide who's right, who's wrong. It's not a contest. It's just we need to understand what we're looking at before we can make any decisions whatsoever about anything. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm heading towards the end of my life cycle, and I want to find the good side of eternity, if there is one. Maybe there isn't. I have no idea. I can't tell you for a fact, but I can tell you one thing. The things that I have found point to the myths being true. And Brian Forrester, I'm just sorry, he's wrong about virtually everything he's talking about on these things. He's going there, seeing these things. He doesn't understand what he's seeing. And Baalbek is tendons. It's literally bits and pieces of tendons. Even though you say, oh, it's impossible. Look at the size of that pregnant lady stone. Doesn't matter. It's a piece of tendon. The size of the creatures that I found on Earth, tendons are, that size is nothing. I'm serious. There's a dragon in Africa that's over 1,000 miles long. How big do you think his tendons are? Oh, Roger, how could you possibly say there's a dragon that size? Well, guess what? Not only is there a dragon there, he's killing this fish. He attacked him, spit all this stuff out on top of the fish, and ate into his vital flesh. These are the scales of the fish. You have Google Earth. I'm not going to go into this again for the 100,000th time. I've shown this at least 100 times. That is the dragon's body. It goes all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, and his tail is still here with his dead, decaying, leaching bodily fluids out of his dragon-scaled tail. And we go back the other direction from the other side of North Africa, 1,000 miles away to his head. We see a head of a dragon, and we see a throat of a dragon going right down here. And I believe it's called the Draco River Basin or something like that, Dragon River. And it is. And these are the scales of the dragon. And they are cleaved so that he can bend his neck. That's why you have these little hinges. And those are dragon scales. That's his throat. And it runs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down is his throat. And these are dragon scales. They haven't changed. They're dragon scales. Now, what did change? Guess what? Here's what had changed. His throat was cut somehow. And right down here is where red blood always grows green things. And this is the only green spot in this whole area. And it's green because of red blood. Red blood grows green things. And that's where it got cut, and all that red blood ran out into the desert. All right, the black blood grows lichen. It's two different styles of textures. This grows white-looking stuff, and this grows green-looking stuff. It's blood meal. Blood meal is excellent for green growing plants. And his throat keeps going, but he got cut right there. And it says that God slayed Typhon, basically, was the story, with a great and mighty sword. Now, I don't know about the fish being attacked at the same time, but it certainly what happened. That is dragon venom, dragon fire. Look at it. Look at that. That's just the nastiest stuff you could ever imagine. And that's coming right out of his mouth. And I went in, and like I try to show these guys, I said, I even found the injectors. I do deep research. I don't just dismiss everything I look at. These are the injectors that inject the venom. And that comes right out of this fluffy yellow stuff. See it? Look at, watch, come down in here. That fluffy yellow stuff feeds the venom injectors, I believe, in this area. Wow, people live in here. I didn't even know that. That's interesting. That's the dragon's beard. Here's the other one right there. All right, maybe it's over here that it fed in, but yeah, I think it's over here. It all runs down here. Yeah, here it is. This runs down, and then all these little dribbles coming out of there end up feeding into the injectors. Yeah, there it is. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. And here's the injectors right up here. This whole line of feed, see it? Comes from that yellow fluffy stuff. You see this here? All goes down the whole line, all that fluffy stuff. I thought it was just some kind of pattern, cute looking, but when I realized it actually came up to here and stopped right here. Well, it didn't stop here, but it coalesced here, and then it fed into here. This whole system, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, and these are all these injectors. You see them? You see down there? Look at that. See the green and red injectors. And that's right in his throat. You see, there's the throat. And there's the effluent where it drains down in. And here's where they all filter together and make the dragon juice. And it all comes flowing out of here. Over here. Now, if nobody takes the time to look at this stuff, it's just silly. But if you take the time to look at it, it's not so silly. And it has, to me, it's gigantically important to understand this. And I have a lot more invested into this than most people. And I have a lot more that has been disclosed to me than most people. And I'll go into that at some point. But like I said, I have a vast number of resources. Let me just put it that way.